Good morning.
Morning.
Listening to what we call the Lord's Prayer, we are reminded that it was fulfilling a request. Teach us to pray. The disciples were asking how to express their connection with God and how to strengthen their belief with God. Now, most of it is giving glory. Most of it is giving praise. But they did ask, give us this day our daily bread. Which implies that they knew not only that God could and would provide for them, but that daily God was active in their life. Not give us all that we need now and we'll see you later. Give us this day our daily bread. Give us what we need right now. There were action steps. Forgive us our sins as we forgive our debtors. Not just, well, give it to me now. I don't have to do anything. Just give it. But there were action steps. There was involvement. It was not just a prayer of supplication. It was a prayer for understanding and action, how to live as well. Now, one of the more well-known, I won't say famous, but one of the more well-known quotes in the Bible talks about, it is done to you as you believe. Now, as is one of those words that can mean while, duration, and time, but also in the manner of what you believe. So what do you believe? Do you believe that God is one, everywhere present? This universe, can it be divided against itself, having warring factions? It wouldn't be a universe if it did. It would fall apart into entropy. So let's start from the awareness that God is one and God is all. Most religions hold to this truth, even the ones that have different powers or saints or Orisha or whatever they want to call them. When you really look at them, they believe that God is one, and these are aspects. When people talk about saints, these are expressions of this one God. So let's start from God is one and God is all. What do you believe about God? You know, we were taught when we were children, and this one will not have to go through that there was this huge permanent record, and everything we did was written down and held against us. Not held in our favor, but held against us. What does that feel like?
No, we might use that one.
Which I think we'll temper it a little better. Held against us as in there's this huge power that runs everything that is looking for what you did wrong. And yet we're told that God is a loving God. It doesn't feel like they go together to me. Now, do I believe that God knows everything? Of course. God is not only this universe, but all possibility. All possible universes, all possibilities for you, for that chair. God is everything. Not just all sentient life, but everything. Because God is all. So that means that I can't say that this church is a more holy space than in the parking lot. Because God is in the parking lot too. God is in the van that was driven through that crowd of people last week. God is everywhere present. Do I know everything that God intends? No, I don't. Not even for myself, so how can I for the whole world? But I do believe that there is a wholeness. God is not just this beingness and there's otherness outside. You know, they used to believe that the universe was like concentric shells. And they thought that the Earth was in the middle, and then there were the different spheres where the planets were. And they explained it by adding a little this and a little that to fit what didn't fit that model. But they actually were afraid of the number 0 because it included the concept of the void and of nothingness. And that didn't fit with their beliefs. They actually killed people for developing systems that included the number 0. There was a time period where they realized they needed 0. They couldn't count starting with 1. And they take away 1, what have you got? Horrors, it's 0. So they actually borrowed from those cultures that included 0 in their system, did their calculations, and then changed it back to theirs where it was safe and they didn't have to encounter the void. They didn't have to think about what that meant. But the cultures that did involve 0 were the ones who were using numbers not just for measuring how tall something is or where your boundary is or the other starts. They were thinking of concepts. And the concepts helped them understand what nothingness could be, what infinite could be. And it freed them to have algebra, calculus. Now we don't use calculus in our daily lives that much. Only when we use our phones and anything else that has to do with computers, right? Even though we're not thinking of it that way, we're using all these different concepts. We know that when we pick up that phone, we expect it to work. We believe that that phone is going to be what it was designed to be. But we don't know how. Same thing with the universe. We know that there are other stars, there are other planets, that the distances between are vast. And we know that there is, yes, life. They found water on other planets. They've gotten asteroids back that had organic compounds. You've read about this in the news. So we know there's life. God is life. God is everywhere present. God is all-knowing. We can grant that as a belief. That's a basic belief, right? That's why we, in our anguish, in our unknowingness, are drawn to something larger than ourselves, to seek that assurance, that answer, to still our minds or give us that feeling that, yes, whatever is going on is part of a whole and will resolve into what we call good. That's a natural tendency of human beings. Whatever your culture, it's a natural thing that we do. Part of us being human. We start with our parents because our parents are gods to us. They control everything about what we wear, what we eat, if we eat, when we go to bed, what we watch, what we don't watch. Our parents are our first gods. Now sometimes that gives us different ideas about the God because parents are human beings and they don't have a manual that comes with every baby to say this is how you raise this child. And it would have to be with every baby because every baby is different. They don't get that handbook of instruction. And so we don't have our own handbook of how we raise ourselves, how we live our lives. Some people look at the Bible as that. Some people look at the Bible and say it's a nice historical record, and some of it is plagiarized, and some of it is made up, and some of it has been changed over the years. And both are right. But I believe in a God that is so all-knowing and all-powerful that even the changes that are in the Bible that we know, who was in charge? Who made sure that that book was infused around the world and formed the basis of many societies? If you really believe that God is in charge, then what's wrong? If you really believe that God is one, What's pulling away from God? What's pulling against God? Now, we have been told that we have the power of choice, which means we can choose what we believe. But remember the concept that is not just in Christianity, it's in many different teachings, that it is done to you as you believe. Even the secular psychologists say that your belief system informs your view of what's going on, your reaction to what's going on. So if I believe the world is an unfriendly place, that's what I'm going to experience. If I believe that the people around me are judging me, looking at me, I'm going to feel that way, and that's what I'm going to project, whether they're doing that or not. That's what I'm experiencing. That becomes my reality. Your perception becomes your reality. Now, one of the ways that we inform our perception is watching what we call the news. It's not all good, and it's not all that happens. If we watched what is broadcast as the news and thought that was the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, we would have a very unhappy life because it focuses on that which gets attention. If they came on and said, 6 billion people today were kind to one another, that wouldn't make the news that we see. We focus on, something happened. Now, I think 6 billion people being kind to each other is something that happened. I think that's mighty good news. I think that that's the kind of thing that would feed our souls. But that reality is not what's reported. So-and-so fed a child today. Didn't have to, but did a good thing. That might be a footnote or a filler. But how much more does that kind of thing happen than the sensational things about murder or all the other isms you can name? So we hear 1%, if that much, of what's going on. And because it's repeated, our brain accepts that as the reality. I read it. I heard it on the news. I saw it on the internet. But that's not your world. You all didn't go out and murder somebody. You all didn't go punch somebody in the face. So you know that's not the whole truth. It may be true that that happened, but you don't believe that that's the whole world. You don't believe that that's the innate nature of people because that's not your innate nature. Your innate nature is to be thoughtful and kind and caring, to learn, to grow, to give. It is done to you as you believe. So your life includes that kind of energy because you believe that about yourself. You know that in your heart you don't wish to harm someone, whoever they are, even if they're trying to harm you. It's not. I mean, all of us know about the church shooting. We're not in here packing. Somebody's going to come in and shoot up the church. We don't have that kind of an attitude. That was something that happened, but that is not the truth of our world. We don't believe that we have to constantly defend against one another. And we know that wherever we are, God is, and therefore, whatever we run into, we will be able to handle it and handle it well. Now, if we did not have in ourselves this awareness of the indwelling God, life would be kind of scary. Because we would believe we are here by ourselves, unconnected to one another. Our connection is deeper than even just being human. Our connection is deeper than our locality. We are part of this universe, necessary parts of the universe, or we would not exist. You are important to the other side of Mars. Because you're part of this wholeness. You're part of everything that is working together. And you can fill the rest of that sentence in as I know your minds have done. Because in you is a knowledge. This is why all of these different religions and ways of teaching go back to a sense of wholeness, go back to a sense that we can be more than what we know ourselves to be right now. That wouldn't be possible if we didn't know that this power, this one source, is here interacting with us in everything we do. That this that feeds our life force is for us. And that we are part of that oneness. What do you really believe? Do you think that people are basically kind? Do you think people basically would like to learn things and know that they are loved and secure? Aren't people basically like you? And you're good. When you see someone else win a lotto, don't you rejoice because their life got changed? And if it can happen to them, it can happen to you. When you see somebody succeed at something, their success is your success. We are connected. When you see someone overcome a physical illness, your body can do that too. So every good thing that you notice out here in this world, you're connected to that. You have that capacity within you. That's why you can notice it, because there's that in you that resonates with that. Now, it's true that sometimes we have moments where we feel not as up as we like. We might feel kind of sad, or something might disturb our peace. But remember, you are connected. And all of God is right there with you. You can't do anything about that. That's going to be regardless of whether you pay attention to it or not. But part of your connection means that all of these other 6 billion, really 6.9999 billion, who are feeling and wanting and doing the same things that are in your heart, the love in your heart is your love. You can actively claim and pull from that knowledge and feel better. When you feel like you have a lack in your life, isn't that something of now? It's something in time. It's not a blanket you don't have, you never will have. It's a situation, it's a circumstance. Just like illness or any kind of knot. It's a temporary thing, a temporal thing in time. And because we live in time, we live in change. So that means that whatever is now in this world is part of change. It is not permanent. You're not permanently sitting in that chair. You're not permanently feeling whatever you're feeling from the air conditioning or not. It's temporary. And because you're connected to the whole, what you need is already connected to you. They found that, this is from TED, they found that trees of different species help each other. They took a small tree and covered it completely so it couldn't get any light. Its roots connected with a tree of another species, and the other species gave it carbon so it could live. We can do that with each other. That is what happens when we bless one another. When we pray for one another, we are sending our energy out for the good of that other limb, which is connected to us. Because we are all connected. We are one body. So when you think of someone with love, when you think of a situation and bless everything in it, seeing it as healed and whole and holy. You are physically changing the world. You are making a difference in that situation, that person, that life, and all those around you. It's just like a sequoia tree. We see a tree, it's huge, it's beautiful, it's magnificent. But at different levels of that tree are totally different ecosystems. There are creatures that live only on that tree. They've never seen the ground. They're not going to see the ground. They live at that level of that tree. Higher up, totally different. Higher up, totally different. When a sequoia tree is getting old, its branches put down roots. Now this might be hundreds of feet in the air, but its branches will put down roots to help the rest of the tree survive. Nature is built on cooperation, on assisting other life. It's true that in our world, life feeds on life. We eat plants, we eat animals. They have to die for us to eat them. But we are also food. We create food, and when we go, we are food. We are an organic whole. We are part of this cycle of life. Do you believe that you're just one person? You were not the same person you were 10 years ago, and that was a real person. You're not the same person you're going to be 10 years from now, and that's a real person, wherever you are. Because you always will be. All is one. Now, when things happen in our lives, it's feedback. We may judge it as uncomfortable, wrong, bad, whatever you want to call it. But if it does not come out of you, how do you know it's in you? If I find myself getting irritated about a particular trait someone has, I look at that irritation to tell me what's happening with me. It's not what that other person did at all. It's me. If someone is careless, let's say they leave things everywhere, and I let myself get irritated about that, that is not saying anything about the other person. It's saying that I have a problem with things being everywhere. So I can either complain, which does nothing but make me feel bad, and leave me in a state of judgment and create another program, or I can pick it up. I can change it. I can do something about it. Or I can put my focus elsewhere. I have many choices. But all of that happens in here. It's not my job to live that other person's life or judge them like I know everything that's going on in the world. It's my job to see where I am and work with that to see where I can grow and become what I know I can be, which is an expression of the God within. Isn't that why we're here? That's what I believe. I believe that other people are here to help us see what's inside, to help me see a reflection of possibility. You have so many possibilities that I've never experienced, and I get to see how that works. You've lived a life that is fascinating, but I don't get to do it, but I can see you, and I can see what that produces. That's my job. We are connected, people. We are one. Just as God is one, we are one. And everything you do, everything you think and feel, comes out of your belief about what is. Your world will reflect what you believe. We need to really pay attention, because only we can manage our belief. Only we can change our belief and grow. If you have an area that you would like to perfect, realize that you are growing into it, or you would not see the perfection that could be. It is possible for you, or you would not perceive it. God is all there is. God is whole, perfect, and complete. If God is all there is, what are you? Namaste.